Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. I'm Tim Hannon, and with me, as always, is
I'm Steve Word, I think. Yes. I'm checking my name tag. Yep, I'm good.
today we're going to talk about the greatest moments in Pittsburgh sports history that no one remembers. So Steve, I think when I think of great moments in Pittsburgh sports history, it's like, I don't know, the Immaculate Reception, Santonio Holmes, Marc-Andre Fleury making that save, right? There's all these great moments that everybody remembers. And I think there's other great moments too that just have kind of been forgotten to time. So we're going to go through those. And for each of these moments, we'll talk about obviously the moment, but then we'll kind of delve into why it's not front and center in Pittsburgh sports lore, why it's maybe forgotten.
Fair enough.
So we're going to start out with a Steelers Ravens game. Lots of memorable Steelers Ravens games from over the years. One that's kind of forgotten is the Steelers Ravens game from 2012. And in 2012, the Steelers not really having a great season. And to make matters worse, both Ben Roethlisberger and number two quarterback Byron Leftwich are injured. So the Steelers are starting a guy named Charlie Batch at quarterback. And Charlie Batch is a guy that we all loved, right? He was a Homestead native, solid backup, great teammate, all around good guy. And he'd been a fairly dependable backup for a lot of years in Pittsburgh. But at this point in 2012, he's 37 years old, and he's really not supposed to be starting football games anymore. That's why he's, at this point, the number three quarterback on the roster. But again, like we said, the other two guys were hurt, and the Steelers have no other choice. So they mark out old man Charlie Batch against Cleveland in week 12, and he proceeds to throw three interceptions and a loss to the lowly Browns. And the following week, the Steelers are headed to Baltimore. And we mentioned that the 2012 Steelers are not very good. The 2012 Ravens are the opposite. They're very good. In fact, they're on their way to winning a Super Bowl championship that season. So the Ravens are heavy favorites. They haven't lost a game at home in 2 years. And their vaunted defense is going up against poor 37-year-old Charlie Batch, right? This is going to be a massacre. But Charlie Batch shocks everyone. He picks apart the Ravens. He has 25 completions for 276 yards. In the final minutes, the Steelers get the ball at their own 15-yard line. Charlie Batch marches him down the field, completing his final six pass attempts. And that sets up this game-winning field goal attempt by kicker Sean Sweesham.
And Sweesham's kick. And the Steelers have done it. Charlie Batch. What a turnaround 1 week later. And look how much he put into it and how much it means to the 15-year veteran.
And you can kind of hear it there. CBS captures this great shot of Batch just kind of collapsing into the arms of Ben Roethlisberger in tears. And that ends up being Charlie Batch's final NFL game, and what a way to go out. The Ravens don't lose another game for the rest of the season, but Batch gets the best of them that day. Steve, do you remember that game?
Not even a little bit. But I think I remember it more in the memory. Like I've heard Mike Tomlin talk about it, and like just this is kind of entered in this Pittsburgh sports lore. Like why? How was Ben was still hurt that game? I guess.
Yeah,
Oh
Ben
well.
had gotten hurt, and then Leftwich
Was
had
that the
gotten hurt.
season like not Batch? Byron Leftwich ran into the end zone and fell in the end zone and got hurt, or
Yeah,
was that
that was the home game against the Ravens a couple of weeks earlier.
Yeah, he scores a touchdown and like just literally doesn't get hit or anything, falls into the end zone. It's like, oh, I'm hurt. It's like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, so why is that not remembered? I think the easy answer to that is because 2012 was a very disappointing season for the Steelers. They were coming off back-to-back 12-win seasons, and a lot of people were expecting big things, and instead the Steelers don't even make the playoffs. So nice win and great to beat Baltimore, but Baltimore goes on to win the Super Bowl, and the Steelers don't make the playoffs. So
I think that was the season I couldn't root for anybody in the Super Bowl because it was like San Francisco or Bar. It was the Harbaugh and Harbaugh Super Bowl.
Yes, that was
It's
that
like,
year.
which Harbaugh do you want to win a Super Bowl? Well, what if I want neither? Can the game end in a tie and we not award the Super Bowl trophy to either team?
That almost happened because the power went out, but yeah, eventually they had to finish the game. Unfortunately for the
That
rest of
sucks.
us.
They couldn't have given it to like whoever was in the AFC and NFC championship games. You get the Super Bowl trophy.
Well, New England was in the AFC Championship game that year, so
Well,
I don't know that you would have wanted that.
Well, whoever was in the NFC had to be a better option.
Let's go to the ice for our next forgotten moment. It's Game 5 of the 2008 Stanley Cup Finals, and that year the Penguins basically stormed their way through the Eastern Conference. They only lose 2 games en route to the Prince of Wales Trophy, but then when they get to the Stanley Cup
the
Final,
Prince of Wales trophy. I remember that.
well, they still award that every year. The Penguins aren't.
I love the Prince of Wales. He's awesome. Who's the current Prince of Wales? That's you got to figure out. I think it's William. It's William. It is. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think it is William. Yep.
Yes.
So the Penguins win the William Trophy in 2008.
Well, no, in 2008 it would have been Charles's trophy.
Okay.
He still
fair.
was the Prince of Wales. Yes. Sorry. I've watched a lot of The Crown, okay? Sorry.
So in the Stanley Cup Finals, they run into the Detroit Red Wings, who just totally overpower them. Detroit wins the first 2 games of that series by a combined score of 7-0. Then they split the 2 games in Pittsburgh, and so now the Wings can win the Stanley Cup at home in Joe Louis Arena in Game 5. And sure enough, they have a 3-2 lead late in the third period. They're about to win a title. The Penguins pull Marc-Andre Fleury, and with 34 seconds left in their season, Max Talbot, always clutch, gets the game-tying goal and sends it into overtime. And then it turns into like a marathon.
I know who scores the game-winning goal in this.
Well, that would be the great moment.
Yes.
So you do remember this one. That's good. So
Absolutely.
No one scores in the first overtime. No one scores in the second overtime. It goes into a third overtime. And this was pretty intense because the whole time they're playing, they keep showing the Stanley Cup, right? They have it like in the little tunnel behind the ice. Because if Detroit gets the next goal, they're wheeling that thing out to the ice and handing it to them. And the Penguins had a guy on that team named Peter Sikora. And he was that 2008 team was pretty young. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Fleury, all those guys were still pretty young. Sikora was one of the few veterans. He had been on those 90s and early 2000s New Jersey teams that had won cups. So he's really like the only guy in the Pens locker room who had kind of been there, done that in terms of winning championships. So kind of while everybody on both teams is just desperately trying to get the next goal, Sikora decides, when am I ever going to be in this situation again? He decides to try to have some fun with the whole thing. Here's Pierre Maguire of NBC during the overtime.
You know what, fellas? Usually you don't have people tell you they're going to score in overtime. They just go out and do it. Peter Sikora just tapped the glass, pointed at his chest, and said, "I'm going to score." I've never had a player tell me that.
And sure enough, halfway through the third overtime, this happens.
Whitney rifled it on a cross, fed back by Sikora to Gonchar. Sikora fires one, and that ricocheted off the referee. Right back to Sikora again, and a shot. He scores! Sikora said he would get the winner, and he did. It's going back to Pittsburgh for a 6th game.
He called his shot.
Yeah, what a game. The Penguins down to their final 30 seconds, send the game into overtime, win it in triple overtime on, as Steve said, a called shot to keep their Stanley Cup hopes alive.
How many saves did Marc-Andre Fleury have in that game? Like 600?
600 million. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, what an amazing. And do you remember, Steve? I think you're the one that sent this to me. And the next day there were like memes of Peter Sikora photoshopped like onto Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Like standing at home plate calling a shot. I mean, it was going to be this legendary thing. Like we were going to come back and win the cup on this. And Peter Sikora, they were going to build a statue to him.
Yeah.
So why does nobody remember that?
Well, because of Game 6.
Yeah, because Detroit wins the cup in Pittsburgh in Game 6. So it was a nice moment. It extended the season. But, I mean, ultimately, Detroit was just way better. And they win the cup at the Civic Arena in Game 6.
Yeah, it sucked that isn't a more memorable moment. But, hey, it is what it is. I really knew the Penguins were going to win that because Fleury just had one of those games that night where he just wasn't going to give up a goal. Like you could just tell he was so sharp that night that I just knew there was no way Detroit was going to win. It just was a matter of time before the Penguins finally scored a goal. So.
Yeah. I mean, he just didn't want to be the guy that gave up the Stanley Cup winning goal, I suppose. For our next one, let's talk about a guy named John Woodruff. John Woodruff is a freshman at Pitt when he qualifies for the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. And that's a big deal at the time because Woodruff is African American. He's actually the grandson of slaves.
I think he'll get welcomed warmly by the current regime in 1936 in Nazi Germany. I heard they were pretty cool with all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yes. The what Steve's referring to, if you don't know, is that the leader of Germany at the time is a guy named Adolf Hitler. And he's not very friendly to people that aren't white.
German. Yeah.
Or German, yes.
Or just German in general.
Right. Yeah. So Woodruff's event is the 800 meters. And it doesn't go real well for him. He coming around the final turn, he gets boxed in by the other runners. He says, he was an inexperienced runner, and again, he was a freshman at Pitt, and the veteran runners just knew how to kind of take that turn and box you out. So he kind of gets caught, and then he makes a very curious decision. He literally stops running and lets the other runners go around him. And the 800 meters isn't that long of a race, and this was again coming around the big final bend. So imagine he makes a full stop, which would pretty much, you would think, eliminate him from the race. Well, Woodruff is so fast that he actually comes back and wins the gold medal. He actually wins that race. The New York Herald Tribune, which was covering the Olympics, calls it, quote, the most daring move ever seen on a track. And Woodruff, they interviewed Woodruff. He said, I've heard people say that I slowed down or almost stopped. I didn't almost stop. I stopped. And everyone else ran around me. But he said, I didn't panic. I just figured if I had only one opportunity to win, this was it. Like he thought, he could try to sort of keep running or try to fight through getting boxed out. But really, he thought his only chance was to let them go around and then make a dead sprint for the finish line.
Just make it 100-meter sprint, basically.
Pretty much. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty. I can't imagine stopping in the middle of an Olympic gold medal track.
When you say boxed in, so he had a guy like in front of him and behind him, so he couldn't like get out, or was there beside him? I guess there's no video.
I think when they take that turn, just coming like on the inside of the track, you know what I mean? Like So coming, So he just
there's a guy in front of him and a guy beside him,
right? Yeah. So he basically got cut. Like imagine getting cut off in your car. I think that's the visual.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing, like that he comes back and wins that. He later goes on to graduate from the University of Pittsburgh in 1939. He earns a master's degree from NYU. He enters the military, becomes a lieutenant colonel. Later serves as a teacher and a parole officer. And even to this day, in his hometown of Connellsville, PA, there's a 5K held every year to honor him. So why isn't that remembered? I mean, that's a pretty amazing Olympic moment. And probably the answer there is Jesse Owens, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the big story of that Berlin Olympics was Jesse Owens. So, a great story, a guy from Pitt, winning a gold medal in Berlin, similar to what Jesse Owens did, but Jesse Owens was the star of that Olympics. So I think that's probably why John Woodruff's moment is mostly forgotten.
And they brought him back a couple times, like at Pitt football games and stuff. They're like, hey, here's John Woodruff.
They did. He lived a pretty long life. He actually
he just died a couple of years ago, I think.
Right. They had him throwing out the first pitch at an Arizona Diamondbacks game about 10 or 15 years ago. So, yeah, he lived a very full life. So, again, a guy that hopefully, as time marches on, will get more remembered, and that moment gets more remembered, but not really up there, probably again because of the Jesse Owens, which was in itself, of course, a great story. All right, let's go back to the Steelers, and as we all know, we talked about great moments and great moment that we all, of course, remember is when the Steelers win the Super Bowl in 2005. What a great story that was. They finally get the one for the thumb. Jerome Bettis wins it in his hometown in his final season, etc. Right? We did a whole 3-part episode about that. Great story, great moment. You know what people don't often like to reminisce about, Steve? It's what happens next, which is the 2006 season. Because it's a super disappointing season. Ben Roethlisberger gets into a motorcycle accident at the beginning of that season. The defense struggles. The team just seems to make dumb mistakes, commit bad turnovers week in and week out. On New Year's Eve, they're playing their final game of the season at Cincinnati.
I know what play you're talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this.
At this point, the Steelers are 7-8. They've been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Most fans, probably even the players, are just eager to put this whole mess behind them, right? It was going to be a repeat. We were going to repeat as Super Bowl champs, and here we are 7-8 out of the playoffs. I think people just were like, just get the season over with. However, the Steelers do kind of have something to play for. Actually, a couple of things. Number one, there's a lot of scuttlebutt that head coach Bill Cowher is going to retire after this game is over. So this is likely going to be his final ever game of his, legendary Steeler career. And then number two, the Bengals need to win this game for them to make the playoffs. And remember, the Steelers and Bengals have this huge rivalry in this era with, TJ Houshmandzadeh wiping his feet with a terrible towel and Carson Palmer getting hurt in the playoff game. So it sure would be fun to ruin Cincinnati's season for the second year in a row, wouldn't
it? Yes, it would.
And Bill Cowher, in the week leading up to the game, he even addresses it. He says, quote, "Misery loves company, and we're looking for some company." So even Bill Cowher is like, yeah, we'd love to just ruin their season, even though we have nothing to play for. It ends up being a really great game. Lots of big plays. Willie Parker has 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carson Palmer hits the late Chris Henry on a 66-yard touchdown in the second half. The game's tied in the final seconds. The Bengals have a chance to win it on a field goal. The kicker Shane Graham misses on an attempt of 39 yards.
I forgot about that. And I forgot about that, yeah.
Well, and you know what's odd? That's the third straight season where a kicker has the chance to end the Steelers season and misses. So you had Doug Bryan in 2004, you had Vanderjagt in 2005, and you had Shane Graham in 2006.
Something about ending the Steelers season with a field goal, huh?
Yeah. So I just thought that was,
yeah,
I just thought that was an interesting stretch of missed field goals.
39-yarder too. That's not really that difficult.
No, it's not. So after that missed field goal, the game goes into overtime. The Steelers win the coin toss. They have 1st and 10 on their own 33-yard line. And this is the play
I know what's going to happen next.
He's back, short drop, quick slant, on his way up the left sideline. There goes Santonio. He is going. He's at the 10, 5, touchdown Pittsburgh. Touchdown Pittsburgh.
Who they going to beat them Bengals?
And that's quite, what? Bill Cowher deserved to go out like that. Just sicking at the Cincinnati one more time.
Yep. Bill Cowher's final ever game. Rookie Santonio Holmes races through the Bengals' secondary, 67-yard overtime touchdown to eliminate the Bengals from the playoffs. What a moment. We'll remember that for years, or we won't. I think why this one's not remembered is because of what we said before, right? It was a really disappointing season. Yeah. People were just eager to forget it, and we did. And we did forget it. All right, our next great moment that no one remembers. We're going to go way back for this one, all the way back to the year 1926. And the Notre Dame football team in 1926 is pretty legendary. They're coached by a guy named Newt Rockne, and they're 8-0. They've outscored their opponents. This is not a made up. This is real. They had outscored their opponents 197-7.
I wonder who scored that lone touchdown.
I mean, literally 8 games into the season, they've given up a touchdown, and that's it. So pretty dominant team. They're gearing up for the final game of the season against mighty USC, which, if they win, would give them a national championship. But before they can play UFC, they have what they think is a tune-up game at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh. versus Carnegie Tech, which is now known as Carnegie Mellon University.
Oh wow!
And this was an annual game for Notre Dame. So this wasn't like a team they never played before. They played Carnegie Tech every year, and they always won this game by a lot of points. So they're thinking they're probably not even going to break a sweat. Let's just focus on USC, get this game out of the way. In fact, Newt Rockne decides he's not even going to attend the game. He has his assistants run the show because it's like a waste of time for him to make that trip all the way to Pittsburgh.
He's going to take them up the middle, take it right to not being, I'm not going to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You guys.
But literally, he's just like, why bother, right? This is just going to be pointless. Well, that decision turns out to haunt him. Carnegie Tech scores 2 first-half touchdowns. So remember, that's double the touchdowns Notre Dame has given up all season, and they score 2 in the first half. They kicked 2 field goals in the second half, both on drop kicks, by the way, because 1926.
Yeah. No, nobody's holding that ball for us. I can do it myself.
These kids today with their holders. Final score is Carnegie Tech 19, Notre Dame nothing. It's a monumental upset. It's one of the greatest college football teams ever, shot out by this little dinky school in Pittsburgh that doesn't even have a football team anymore. So why is that not remembered? Probably because it was almost 100 years ago. I'm going to put that as
Carnegie Tech is Carnegie Mellon, and unless it's a robot, or actors, I can't think of anything else I remember Carnegie Mellon for.
That's a good point, Steve. If they still had a football program, you could, great moments in our football program's history, but because it's defunct, probably you're not going to remember it or look back on it too often. But yeah, huge upset. 8-0, 197-7 was their margin of victory.
Maybe Newt Rockne was glad he wasn't there. I don't know.
I guess. Could you imagine? First of all, that would never happen today, but could you imagine?
Well, Urban Meyer kind of did that with Jacksonville when he just decided not to go back with the team and then horse around with a bunch of women that might have not been his wife.
Yeah, that's true. But that wasn't during the game, at least. I can't imagine. I can't imagine the internet would have just gone crazy with that. And then would have talked about bulletin board material. Maybe it was bulletin board material, for the Carnegie Tech players. Who knows?
I don't even know what to make of that. That's crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah. And Notre Dame does not get the national championship that year because they lost to Carnegie Tech.
Carnegie Mellon. And not in a robotics competition.
No. Yeah. And a live football. And they were shut out 19-0. My goodness. So, that's a quintessential looking past your opponent, right?
Yeah,
the coach doesn't show up. The players don't show up. Well, they physically showed up, but they didn't mentally show up.
Who knows? Maybe was that the 4 horsemen? They had the 4 horsemen back
I think
then,
so. But wow. They were pretty dominant. 197-7. So that one probably should be more remembered, but it isn't. Let's fast forward a little bit from 1926. Let's go to 1979. There's a lot happening in Pittsburgh in 1979 in the sports world. The Steelers are winning the Super Bowl. The Pirates are winning the World Series. What about the Penguins? Actually, in 1979, the Penguins put together a pretty decent season. They finished in second place in the Norris division. Yes, the Penguins were once in the old Norris division.
Wow, I didn't know. That's crazy. Yeah, that's hard to think.
Yep.
That ended up, that ended up being the Western Conference, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And then it ended up being the NFC Central. If you used to watch Chris Berman.
Yeah, the NFC North. Because it was Green Bay, Minnesota, and
Detroit, Chicago, that division.
Tampa.
Yep.
Tampa. Tampa. Don't forget Tampa, Tim.
Well, yeah. They were not good back then. So in the first round of the playoffs that year, the Penguins are up against the Buffalo Sabres. And back then, the way that the NHL did the playoffs, there was 4 rounds of playoffs just like there is today. But the first round is only a 3-game series because the owners, I guess, hadn't figured out yet that they could make a lot more money if you just played 7 games and all the series. So it's only a 3-game series. The Penguins win game 1, the Sabres win game 2, and then game 3 goes into overtime. So the next goal wins the series. And at this point in their history, the Penguins don't really have a lot of postseason success or any kind of real great moments to speak of. In fact, they had mostly terrible luck with declaring bankruptcy and guys dying tragically young and everything else. But this time, things work out differently.
Greg Shepard has Ferguson breaking on the left wing. Here's Ferguson moving right in. Oh! George Ferguson and the Penguins win the playoff series against the Buffalo Sabres.
We're going to the quarterfinals. Ho!
Penguins win on a brilliant goal by Ferguson.
That's an amazing video. Where did you find that, Tim? Wow, I'm impressed. A couple things about this video that you can't see on the podcast. Number one, the Penguins are wearing blue jerseys. Number two, half the team aren't wearing helmets. The guy who scored the goal is wearing a helmet, which is impressive. Hey, there's Rick Keogh. He's kind of famous. That's cool, man. Did they play St. Louis the next round? Or
wow, good memory. Oh no, I'm sorry. They played Boston the next round.
Boston, okay. I know there's a series against St. Louis in like the 70s or early 80s that was like pretty wild.
Yeah, so George Ferguson scores at 47 seconds of overtime to give the Penguins their most dramatic victory to that point. And you kind of hear it, Steve, in the announcers' voices. Like that was a pretty excited reaction that they had. The guy's like, yes, we're going to the quarterfinals. I mean, that was a big deal for the Penguins. You just hear it in their voices. Like that Penguins had never had that kind of success before. Actually, to this day, there have only been 3 times in Penguins history where a Penguins player scored an overtime goal in the deciding game of a playoff series. So, like, in other words, like a game 7. Like, I know this was game 3, but it was equivalent to game 7. Steve, can you name the other 2 times?
Game 7s or series clinchers?
No, like deciding games, like where if the other team scores, they win. Or if the Penguins score, they win. Right. So
it's definitely what's his name? It's against Ottawa.
Chris Kunitz.
Yeah. And so there's one other person. In Game 7 overtime.
Yep.
Ugh.
We did an episode about it.
Boy, wow. My brain's out to lunch right now.
It was against a really good goalie, Hall of Fame goalie that you really liked, one of your favorites.
Oh, it was against the Devils.
No, it was a guy you actually liked.
Oh, okay. It was Kasparaitis. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's Buffalo. Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, George Ferguson, Darius Kasparaitis, Chris Kunitz. That's the only 3 times in Penguins history where someone scored.
There's a who's who of Penguins goal scorers.
Yeah. An overtime goal in a Game 7 or Game 7 equivalent. So that's a great moment. Why is it not remembered? Well, probably because, number one, the Penguins get swept in the next round by Boston. And also, the Penguins just aren't very popular at this point in their history. This is around the era where they're getting outdrawn in attendance by the indoor soccer team. And while making it to the second round of the playoffs was a nice little run for them, it's obviously nothing compared to what the other teams are doing in 1979. Right.
And Pitt football was good, and
right.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in the city back then.
Yeah,
sports wise,
you're gonna have to do better than second round of the playoffs to get the attention of the fans at that point.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
But a nice moment nonetheless. All right, we haven't done a baseball one. Let's do a baseball one. In 1990, the Pirates are having a dream season. They win the division. Barry Bonds is the National League MVP. Doug Drabick wins the Cy Young Award. After all those years of turmoil in the 80s, the Pirates finally have a winner again. Steve, I've said this before on the show. My favorite baseball season of all time to this day, 1990. I loved baseball so much, and it was so exciting to see the Pirates. They had that run to the division where they beat the Mets. I to this day, I still have really fond memories of that season. Unfortunately, just like the 2008 Penguins, the Pirates run into a juggernaut in the postseason. The Cincinnati Reds are just a way better team than the Pirates. They win 3 out of the first 4 games of the NLCS, and they have a chance to clinch the pennant at Three River Stadium in Game 5. This is very similar, again, to the Penguins-Red Wings series. But the Pirates, they're not going down without a fight. They take a 3-2 lead into the 9th inning, but the Reds, being the really good team that they are, they load the bases with only 1 out. So it's 3-2 Pirates, bases loaded, 1 out, and it's the 9th inning. So now Reds catcher Jeff Reed is at the plate facing Pirates reliever Bob Patterson. Steve, do you remember Bob Patterson?
Not particularly, but
So so if you don't remember Bob Patterson, you probably don't remember what his nickname was.
No, I forget. Yeah, it was probably not good.
His nickname was the Glove Doctor.
The Glove Doctor.
Yeah, which kind of sounds like a really cool nickname, except that he was called that because a lot of players, even players from opposing teams, would ask Patterson to repair their broken gloves.
Oh, that's nice. He has a career after baseball.
I guess he would sit in the bullpen during games, like, and guys would give him their glove, and he'd like sew it up and you know,
Nice.
put extra leather in, and yeah. So that's it just sounds like a cooler nickname than it was. Like, no, I was good at fixing gloves. Anyway,
It's kind of like a cobbler of shoes.
yeah, kind of, yeah. So Bob Patterson's on the mound. Jeff Reed's at the plate. And all he has to do here is hit a fly ball. There's only one out. Bases are loaded. And that ties the game. Or if he gets a hit, the Reds are going to the World Series. So here's the legendary Jack Buck to tell us what happens next.
Jeff Reed wants the fly ball or the hit. He hits it to third base. The game is tied. Out at second and out of first. No, they don't get the run. What a double play by Pittsburgh. What a double play by Bonilla, who's been playing right field all year. The lean and a great pivot and the double play. And this game is over. We go to game 6 in Cincinnati. What a double play.
Lou Piniella doesn't believe it.
Lou Piniella, yeah, he was
He was really psyched. I thought it ended in a weirder fashion than that. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of a different series. Oh, well.
You figure they were bases loaded, one out. I mean, he was probably thinking, this is it. We're going to the World Series.
That was a 5-4-3 too. It was around the horn, man.
It was, and Jack Buck kind of referenced it. That first of all, that was not an easy play. It was a short grounder, and Bobby Bonilla was a terrible third baseman. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember he'd either throw it in the dirt or over people's heads.
And Jack Buck even said it, that he'd been playing right field all year because he was not good at third base. Like, they'd moved him out of third base, and I don't remember why he was at third base in that situation. But he makes a great play, whipping it to second. Jose Leon gets it to first, and they get a double play. They end the game. Cincinnati's not going to the World Series. What a moment! They've saved their season. This is going to be remembered forever when they come back and win the pennant. Except, just like the 2008 Penguins, Cincinnati wins Game 6, and they go to the World Series, which they sweep against Oakland. So that's why it's forgotten, because again, the Pittsburgh team ended up losing the next game, but still a pretty great play, a pretty memorable moment.
Yeah, a great double play by Bobby Bo, and hey, he's still getting paid by the Mets. Only 10 more years to go there for the Mets every July 1st.
Yeah, Bobby Bonilla, a guy that was kind of maligned in Pittsburgh. Let's talk about another guy that was maligned in Pittsburgh, a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Washington. And Dwayne Washington was a Steelers cornerback for 6 seasons, although it felt like longer than that, Steve. and Steve, I don't know. Maybe you can tell, maybe we have some younger listeners who may not remember Dwayne Washington. Can you just describe why we kind of chuckle when we think about Dwayne Washington and what the fans thought at the time?
Yeah, Dwayne Washington was like, I wish I could relate it to a guy who plays on the team now, but I really can't, because like, he was never necessarily like a guy like, there's corners where it's like, oh, that receiver is just too fast, or he really couldn't cover that guy. Like, I always felt like Dwayne Washington had the speed, and he was always right there with the wide receiver. It just, for some reason, he would either tip the ball to him, or the ball would go through his hands, or he'd be on the wrong side of the wide receiver. He wasn't terrible, but he just wasn't very good either. And it wasn't like Ike Taylor, where he was in perfect position, he just dropped the ball. It just seemed like unfortunate things happening to Dwayne Washington. He was very unlucky for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I think that's a good description. I think that's why he was on the Steelers for as long as he was, because he wasn't bad. It wasn't like he got burned all the time. He was a bad player, but he just tended to give up big plays, and he'd be there, but the guy would catch it somehow. he'd be out of position or whatever. And so he really quickly became like the scourge of the fans, right? I mean, he was on one side, a guy named Chad Scott was the other side, on the other
Now,
side.
Chad Scott would get legitimately burned.
But fans really didn't like those two guys. Remember?
Yeah.
So in 1998, Dwayne's having a little bit of a rocky season. Again, the fans are really all over him. And during that era, the two best teams in the AFC Central Division were Pittsburgh and Jacksonville. And in 1998, the Jaguars have a 2-game lead over the Steelers in the division when they meet at Three River Stadium in Week 12. So Week 12 is pretty late in the season. Jaguars have a 2-game lead. This is really a must-win game for Pittsburgh if they want to catch Jacksonville for the division title. And in the first quarter, Dwayne Washington steps in front of a Mark Brunell pass, and he takes it back for a 52-yard touchdown. What a huge play, right? Here's this guy struggling all season. He makes a big play in the biggest game of the season, but it's still the first quarter. Sure enough, the game goes back and forth. Cordell Stewart makes some big plays for Pittsburgh. Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith make some big plays for the Jags. It all comes down to the Steelers holding a 1-score lead at the end of the game. But here comes the mighty Jaguars offense marching down the field. They're in Steelers territory. They're going to pull this out. Here's what happens next.
Brunell, blocked by Baselli. Brunell swings a pass intercepted by Washington. He has Brunell to beat for a touchdown. No flag down. Washington will go in for his second touchdown of the day. Can you believe it?
And for those of us in Pittsburgh, no, we couldn't believe it.
Kevin Harlan couldn't.
2 pick sixes to beat the Jaguars, put the Steelers right back in the driver's seat for the division title. Steve, do you remember that game?
Now that you show it, I think I remember that. I vaguely remember that. What year was that again? Like
98.
Yeah. And we made the championship game that year, or was that the year after?
Well, so let me no. And that's why no one remembers. So the reason no one remembers this is because, number one, 4 days later, after that game, the Steelers go up to Detroit and they lose a horrific game because the referee misheard Gordon Bettis call tails on the coin toss.
Yeah.
And then the Steelers proceed to lose every other game that season to finish with a losing record for the first time in the Bill Cowher era. So literally that was their last win in Week 12. So Dwayne's heroics, unfortunately, don't lead to much. And I think that's probably why no one remembers this.
Yeah, I guess Jacksonville goes on. Well, no, the Denver wins the Super Bowl again that year, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
So.
But Jacksonville goes on to win the division. And so again, kind of like that Ravens game in 2012. It's like, well, we beat the division rival, but it doesn't really matter in the end.
Well, I'm sure Tom Coughlin was busily signing people off our practice squad to learn our plays. So.
Well, I had to give Dwayne some love because I feel like Steelers fans just always, anytime you mention the name Dwayne Washington, all they think of is just, but he had his moments, and at least he had this moment.
One shining moment.
All right, where are we going to go for our next big moment? Let's see, where are we going to go?
All right, Doc, what's going on, huh? Where are we? When are we?
We're descending toward Hill Valley, California at 4:29 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21st, 2015.
2015? You mean we're in the future?
We're going to the future. And 3 days after Doc and Marty saved Marty Jr. from going to jail, Pitt has a game at Syracuse.
That's sweet. I remember the USA Today paper that they actually printed out
it. Yeah.
I have it somewhere in my house.
I do too. It's the only newspaper I've bought in the last 20 years, but I have it.
Local gang jailed. They printed both, teen jailed and then local gang jailed, I think, or something like that. They printed both editions.
Yeah. It was pretty awesome. So yeah, pretty busy week with that going on. But also in Syracuse, there's a big game. That's, by the way, that's not the reason this is not remembered, because it happened the same week as Marty and Doc going to 2015.
I think it's not remembered because there's no hoverboards, or Jaws 15 wasn't out.
Right,
Shark still looks fake.
That's probably why. So yeah, Pitt Syracuse that Saturday. It's a pretty big game. Pitt's undefeated thus far in the ACC. They're actually ranked at the time. And as we detailed on the show before, the Carrier Dome not a friendly place for Pitt athletic teams over the years. Pitt also has a new head coach that year, a guy named Pat Narduzzi. And at that point, thus far, his tenure is going pretty well. But this game is probably his first really big test. And much like many other Pitt Syracuse games over the years, this one goes down to the wire. The game's tied in the final minutes. Pitt has the ball around midfield, and they get stopped on a third down play, which is bad because now they have to punt the ball back to Syracuse, which would give them the chance to drive for the game-winning field goal.
Oh, I think I remember what happens in this one.
And on the sidelines, Pat Narduzzi is going nuts. He's jumping up and down. He's screaming at his players. He's really ticked off that they failed to get a first down. Now they're going to have to punt the ball back to Syracuse. Like, he's very emotional. So out comes Pitt punter Ryan Winslow, and here's what happens next.
Fake punt. Winslow throws it for a first down to Columbus, the linebacker. He pulled a Riley Dixon.
Do you remember it now, Steve?
Yes, yeah. That was kind of that weird year when Pitt won the games they should and lost the games they should. I remember that season, like, because it was like such an un-Pitt year. Like, they didn't win a game. That like when they played a better team, they lost, and when they played a team that wasn't as good as them, they won. It was I think that ended in the Military Bowl, if I remember correctly.
Oh, it does. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yep, you're right.
I was at the Military Bowl.
I know. I was going to mention that. Yep.
Yeah.
So the whole thing with Narduzzi acting all frustrated was literally just an act.
I didn't know that. Wow. To distract whoever was coaching
Scott
Syracuse.
Schaefer. Scott Schaefer was the Syracuse coach. Yeah, it was literally to make sure that Scott Schaefer.
Yeah, it's like 16 Syracuse coaches again.
Right.
Could have been Paul Pasqualoni still. Who knows? Yeah.
I think he and Schaefer had coached together somewhere previously, so like they knew each other. And I think Narduzzi just wants to, like, I mean, he's screaming and jumping up and down like he's so upset that they have to punt. Yeah. There's no way that they're going to do a fake, right, with him acting like that. And sure enough, Syracuse is totally fooled on the play. It's a pretty bold call because they're right at midfield.
It was tied.
It was tied. If they fail, Syracuse is almost already in field goal range, right? They just have to get a first down maybe, and then they win the game. But because it worked, Pitt is now in field goal range. Chris Blewett comes out to kick the game winner as time expires to give Pitt a 23-20 victory.
Well, that's definitely the biggest kick of Chris Blewett's career.
Yeah. Yeah, not so much. So why is it not remembered? It's because Pitt wins that game. They were ranked at the time. They're ranked even higher after this, but they go on to lose 4 out of their last 6 games. They do qualify for the Military Bowl, as Steve referred to, but they are promptly trounced by the Naval Academy. So, had that play led to them winning the Coastal Division or something like that, I think it's probably more remembered.
Yeah, that was a weird year. It just was a weird year. And Peterman, that was the first. Was that his first year? I think, or yeah, it was either first or second year. And like he still had some holdovers from Todd Graham's or Chris' team. I mean, and so like he had that other quarterback that wasn't that great, and he kind of knew when he brought in Peterman, that's who he wanted to play, and he kind of like goofed around the first half of the season switching quarterbacks until he finally just did what he wanted to. And Peterman had a pretty bad Military Bowl. Like, I don't know, something looked not right. And that was the infamous, they started that Military Bowl with a kickoff return for a touchdown and still lost. They couldn't stop the Naval quarterback. That was kind of that season, like their defense, like if they faced a quarterback that was any good, they really couldn't stop him. So
all I remember about the Military Bowl that year was that the game was pretty much over by the second quarter and that the Naval Academy had these really cool helmets.
Yeah, with battleships and submarines on them. Yeah. Aircraft carriers. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to post a link to like the Naval Academy's helmets that they wore in that game.
There were a lot of Pitt fans at that game. Like they always said, Pitt fans don't travel, don't support the team. I think that's the season that like, just because it was so un-Pitt-like, and Pitt just won the games that people were like, oh my God, this guy's like beating team. Like we didn't have that devastating loss. Like, I mean, was the Naval Academy a great loss? No, but the Naval Academy was decent that year, and they're probably a little better than Pitt, quite honestly. And it just was like, I don't know. I just felt like set up like Narduzzi for a couple years. And what really set him up was the next year when he beat Penn State. That kind of like really cemented him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Our next moment is from a 1985 game between the Steelers and Browns. And it gives me an excuse to play this opening. When I was a kid, I love this like very almost like regal opening that NBC had for their football games. And they had the Lombardi Trophy coming out of this like marble floor with this very triumphant music. And to me, it always made Sunday football feel like this very important event.
If there's no fire, it's not football.
There's no fire. They didn't need
man.
fire back then. This is better than fire. Let me play it.
The National Broadcasting Company is proud to be the network of Super Bowl 20. Today, from Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, it's the Cleveland Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brought to you by Jeep. There's a feeling you can get. Only...
Oh, I want to buy a Jeep. I wonder what the 1985 Jeep looks like.
So yeah, the name of that piece of music, by the way, is called "Send Them Victorious." I'll post a link to that too on our website. But I just always, I don't know, something about that opening when I was a whatever 8-year-old kid at the time. I loved that. I thought it was just like so like, oh, this is an important event that I'm about to watch.
Well, it was the Steelers Browns from 1985. You know what was funny is in another podcast I have highlights from a Giants Steelers game, and when I was reviewing them, I meant to mention this to you in the other podcast. They had the blue bar, the blue bar that you loved so much. Speaking of things that you loved when you were
the fifth quarter one.
Yeah, the blue bar was on there, like saying "Join Sam Nover in the Steelers locker." Yeah. I was like, oh, there's the blue bar that Tim loves so much.
Yeah, I used to hate that. Yes, I hated
that.
They
had like a little, like, this is like,
forgot about
before
that.
They had like better graphics, and they would just run like a little blue bar with like words across the bottom. And it said like, it just was like, oh, stay on WPXI to watch, Sam Nover, the late Sam Nover, I do believe, in the interview, Ernie Mills or something in the Steelers locker room.
Yeah, I did. I always hated that. It'd be like the last 2 minutes of the game, and it's just giant blue bar. It's like, especially if the game was undecided, right? Like somebody's driving for the game-winning score, and it's like covers half the screen.
Or what, the lottery? You love the lottery too.
Oh,
Did you watch Roger Craig's fumble on the lottery?
Yeah,
the little screen on the lottery.
Yeah, well, that one they would actually like kill the audio and everything. Like they would just
be like the Pennsylvania lottery. The San Francisco is driving again for the game-winning score.
It's like this. Pat Summerall would be like, this field goal will send the Giants to the Super Bowl. Matt Barr lines up the Pennsylvania lottery, and they just like, wait, what? No.
But I got to see my winning numbers, Tim.
Yeah. That's the stuff I didn't like about broadcast football back then, but I did love this NBC opening. But let's talk about the actual game. When they built the River Stadium, an interesting thing happens. The Browns can't win there. By 1985, the Steelers had this incredible streak going. For 15 years, the Browns have been coming to Three River Stadium, and they lost all 15 times.
They probably shouldn't give the Browns fan the privilege of pressing the button when they blew it up.
They probably should have. Yeah, that's true. The tides have definitely shifted by this point, though. I mean, because a lot of those years, obviously, it was the 70s and the Steelers are really good. But by this point, 1985, Cleveland is the best team in the division. The Steelers are pretty bad. So when they meet in week 9 of this 1985 season at Three Rivers, I think even Steelers fans think, okay, this is going to be the year that the Browns finally win. Browns owner Art Modell is in attendance, and that's significant because he did not like coming to Pittsburgh. Modell was later quoted as saying it was, quote, always a frightening adventure to go to Pittsburgh because it's a hard-drinking, menacing crowd, end quote.
Wow. Boy, how times have changed.
Yeah, could you imagine if an NFL owner said that today? Like, I don't like going to, name of city that's in my division because it's a bunch of drunks who act, poorly.
Bud Adams kind of did that with what town was that? Buffalo, where he flipped off all the Buffalo fans.
Yeah, true.
But he was like 80 years old when he did that.
Right. I think that the old school owners that, didn't really understand the idea of media savvy. So Art Modell, just doesn't like Pittsburgh, but he doesn't want to miss this game. He's there for this game because this is finally going to be the year that the Browns beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. It ends up being a low-scoring game because of a torrential downpour. It's just pouring down rain all day. The immortal Walter Abercrombie has a 32-yard touchdown run for the Steelers, but former Steeler kicker Matt Barr kicks 3 field goals for the Browns. So it's 9-7 Cleveland in the final minutes of the game, and immortal Steelers quarterback David Woodley drives the team into field goal range. So out comes Gary Anderson to attempt a game-winning field goal in the rain. It's 9-7, final seconds. It comes down to Gary Anderson trying to kick a field goal in the rain. And I'm going to play the audio. There's some good audio here. You'll hear the Browns special teams coach, a gentleman you might recognize, is on the sidelines trying to figure out a way to block this kick.
Now is when you start to summon. That's Billy Cowler, the special teams coach, talking with Marty Sutton.
I wonder if it's rated to
Now
Bill.
is when you start talking about your best kick blocking schemes.
Right down the middle. The Pittsburgh Steelers, with 9 seconds to go, continue the jinx. 10-9 Steelers.
I think I saw Frank Pollard wandering around.
What a picture of dejection and frustration. 16 years in a row.
I'm sorry. Laughing at the late Art Modell. I guess I shouldn't.
You listeners obviously can't. No, you can laugh at him. You listeners obviously can't see it, but at the end of that clip there, where the announcer talks about a picture of dejection and frustration, they're showing Art Modell standing there with raindrops falling, just looking totally bewildered.
He kind of looks like Axl Rose at the end of November Rain. Remember the end of November Rain video where he's just like standing in there like that like formal outfit with like the rain just like.
Yeah,
maybe we should like redo that with the November Rain music
song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, he's just like, he can't believe the Browns just lost this game again, right? This was going to be the year they finally won. The announcer making that comment, by the way, about the dejection and frustration, it's Reggie Rucker, who played for the Browns during that streak. So that hopelessness you hear in his voice is pretty genuine. Like, he's been through this. So what a great moment, right? Who cares if the Steelers think they still beat the Browns again? They keep the streak alive. What a great moment. Why does nobody remember it? Well, because it's the 80s and the Steelers stunk in the 80s. And it was a nice moment, but at the end of that season, the Browns still win the division. The Steelers still have a losing record. Also, Cleveland does finally win at Three Rivers Stadium the following year to snap the streak. But it was a great moment fending them off for one more season, at least.
Yeah. Boy, we've been like ever since 1970 something, we've kind of had the Browns number, huh?
Yes, we have.
I mean, I wonder how many times total the Browns have even beaten the Steelers in general. I mean, I bet it's like around the number 20. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I know that there was a stat at one point from that 94 season on where we beat them 3 times. It was a single digit kind of stat that they'd beaten the Steelers. And I know Ben Roethlisberger especially has a crazy win percentage against them. So yeah, it's been a pretty one-sided. That's why it's really not considered much of a rivalry anymore, because it's been so one-sided. But it's picked up a little bit in recent years. And that in 1985, remember that it was still a big deal. People really hated Cleveland back then, and just to beat them at home when they had never won here, with David Woodley and Walter Abercrombie leading the way. I mean, that was pretty amazing. And just watching Modell stand, I remember that as a kid, just being so happy to see Modell standing there, just like looking like he was about to cry. That was a beautiful, beautiful sight. All right, folks, that's the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we really, really appreciate the folks who support our podcast, and especially you folks who just kind of tune in week and week out. If you want to get in touch with us, you can check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter. You can email the show via our website. And please, if you feel so inclined, tell others about the show as well. Thank you, and we will see you next time.